I never believed in ghosts. Not until the night I found myself trapped inside a nightmare that refused to end. I don't even know if I should call it a nightmare anymore, because it was all too real. The kind of reality that claws at your mind and breaks you down piece by piece. This is my story, my confession, and the only way I know to free myself from the darkness that has consumed me. It started on a night that seemed ordinary enough. The rain was falling softly, drumming a steady rhythm against the window pane of the small cafe where I was sheltering. I was alone, nursing a bitter cup of black coffee when she walked in, like a specter stepping out of the fog. Her eyes were arresting, a deep shade of gray that reminded me of a thunderstorm gathering on the horizon. Her presence unsettled me, yet I was inexplicably drawn to her. She didn't say much, just nodded when I offered her a seat. We talked quietly, our voices barely above a whisper, as if afraid to disturb some invisible boundary. There was something in the way she moved, the way she looked at me with such sadness, that made me want to reach out to comfort her, but she kept her distance. Later that night, she invited me to her home, a lonely house perched on the outskirts of town, swallowed by shadows and twisted vines. The windows were dark, the door hanging ajar like an invitation into the unknown. Despite the nagging unease crawling up my spine, I followed her inside. From the moment I crossed the threshold, the air grew heavier. The scent of aged wood and cold stone mixed with something faintly metallic, like blood long dried. Candlelight flickered, casting grotesque shadows on the peeling wallpaper. She motioned for me to sit, then vanished into the darkness of another room. Days passed, or maybe it was weeks, I lost track of time, spent mostly in silence and uneasy companionship. She never allowed me to touch her. Each time my hand brushed against her arm, she would recoil, a flicker of terror flashing across her face. Yet, she never explained why. I grew desperate to understand. Who was she? What was this curse that kept her from the simple comfort of human touch? The house itself seemed alive, groaning and creaking as if breathing in the dark. Whispered voices curled around the corners, soft and unintelligible, pulling at the edges of my sanity. Then I found the diary. Hidden beneath a loose floorboard in her bedroom, the worn leather cover was cracked and stained, as if it had survived centuries. Inside, the pages were filled with frantic scrawls detailing a curse that had haunted her bloodline for generations. A pact with an ancient darkness that demanded isolation and perpetual fear. The curse forbade any physical contact with another soul, lest the darkness be unleashed in a torrent of pain and death. As I read, the room seemed to close in, the shadows growing longer, twisting into shapes that watched me with malevolent eyes. The more I learned, the deeper I sank into the nightmare. Her name, I discovered, was Lilith, a name that resonated with myth and mystery. She was bound to this house, to this curse, unable to escape the torment of her existence. Her story unfolded in jagged fragments, stories of sacrifice, loss, and a desperate hope for redemption. One night, I awoke to find her standing at the foot of my bed, eyes glowing faintly red in the moonlight. Her voice was a whisper, barely audible. You must leave before it's too late. But I couldn't. I was trapped by love, by fear, by something darker still. The entity that haunted her grew stronger, manifesting in shadows that danced just beyond sight, in chilling whispers that promised freedom for a price. It invaded my dreams, twisting memories into horrors, dragging me toward madness. And then came the night it demanded a sacrifice. I refused. But the darkness doesn't accept no. The house erupted in chaos. The walls bled, the floorboards shattered, and a scream pierced the silence, tearing through the night. I reached for her, but she was gone, vanished like a phantom. When dawn broke, I was alone, or so I thought, because the darkness had followed me, woven into my very soul, and the nightmare had only just begun. The days after that night blurred into one endless stretch of torment. I wandered through my own home, haunted not by ghosts, but by the memory of her, the woman I lived with, yet never touched. Each room held echoes of her presence, the faint scent of lavender in the air, the cold imprint where she once sat, the subtle shift in the shadows that I could never quite explain. It was as if the house itself mourned her absence. But she was never truly gone. At first, I told myself I was losing my mind. The soft footsteps behind me when no one was there, the whispered warnings carried on the wind, the fleeting glimpses of a pale figure at the edge of my vision, all dismissed as tricks of fatigue and grief. Yet deep down, I knew the truth was far worse. One evening, I found a note slipped beneath my door. The handwriting was delicate, almost ethereal. Do not seek me, for I am bound by chains you cannot see. But if you try to free me, you will unleash what has been waiting. That note shattered what little peace I had left. Driven by a mixture of dread and desperate hope, I returned to the house on the outskirts of town, the one where our strange coexistence had begun. The gate creaked open, as if expecting me. Inside, the air was thick with a suffocating chill, and the walls seemed to pulse with an ancient heartbeat. Exploring the rooms, I stumbled upon a hidden cellar door beneath a dusty rug. My hands trembled as I lifted the heavy wooden hatch, descending into darkness. The scent of earth and decay filled my lungs, and my footsteps echoed down the stone stairs. There, in the flickering light of a single candle, I found a circle drawn on the floor, symbols etched in ash and bone. A diary lay in the center, bound in cracked leather. As I opened it, a voice whispered behind me, "You should not have come back." I spun around, but the cellar was empty. The diary revealed secrets darker than I had imagined. Lilith's family had been cursed centuries ago by a vengeful spirit, trapped between worlds, condemned to a life of solitude and fear. The curse was a chain, binding her to the house and preventing any touch from another human. Breaking it would require a sacrifice, either hers or mine. I realized then that my fate was tied to hers in ways I couldn't comprehend. That night, as I lay in the cold cellar, the shadows closed in. A chilling presence pressed against me, whispering promises of freedom and doom. I fought to resist, but the darkness seeped into my veins. The next morning, I awoke on the floor of the cellar, alone, with a single message burned into my palm. Find her before the curse consumes us both. I returned to the house countless times, each visit peeling back more layers of the mystery. The woman who never let me touch her was both a prisoner and a guardian, fighting an evil older than time itself. The house was a cage, but also a battlefield, and I was trapped in the middle. As days turned into weeks, my mind frayed. I saw her in every corner, a fleeting shadow, a whisper on the wind, a flicker of movement just beyond sight. Each time I reached out, she vanished, leaving behind only cold air and a silence that screamed. One evening, I found a hidden room behind a bookshelf. Inside was an altar covered with ancient relics, candles melted down to stubs, and a cracked mirror that seemed to absorb light. In its depths, I saw her reflection. Not the woman I knew, but something else. A spectral figure bound by chains of sorrow. I realized then that touching her wasn't just forbidden, it was deadly. But the truth I uncovered was worse. The curse wasn't just a punishment. It was a warning. If I broke the boundary, I wouldn't save her. I would release a darkness that would consume everything I loved. The climax came on a storm-ravaged night, when the line between worlds thinned to a razor's edge. Thunder cracked like gunfire, and the house groaned as if alive. I found her waiting in the parlor, pale and trembling, eyes pleading. "Please," she whispered, "don't touch me." But I couldn't stop myself. As my fingers brushed her skin, the house erupted. Shadows writhed like living things, screams filled the air, and the walls bled darkness. The curse unleashed its fury, not on her, but on me. I was dragged into a nightmare realm, a place where time and space warped into chaos. She was there, trapped beside me, her eyes filled with sorrow and hope. "I never wanted this," she said, "but